Hey folks, thanks so much for tuning in. Here's another episode of How to Write Songs. I'm your host, Sam Mizell. On today's episode, we have Keith Follese, award-winning pop and country writer, producer, publisher, record label executive, and so much more. With songs like Before You Kill Us All, Randy Travis, Something Like That, Tim McGraw, The Way You Love Me, Faith Hill. Welcome, Keith Follese.
And so the Zoom thing is a little new to me.
Yeah, man. It is definitely the wave of the future.
Well, it's the wave of the COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it might become more prevalent after that, at least for hooking up people internationally, for sure. I mean, we all have our COVID stories. I mean, I have two artists I've been developing, and one in Canada and one here. And the one here, I mean, she just turned 21. And she's from Mobile, Alabama. She's a country artist, great singer, great girl. We actually signed her to a production and management contract, which I don't usually do, but I've been screwed so many times I decided to do it this time. And, we ended up, through an acquaintance of mine, getting her a sponsorship or a co-investor on our behalf and her behalf from Minneapolis, which is my hometown. And we're ready to go, and boom, COVID hits. So that we have a game plan anyway in place to kind of roll her out now, different than last year. But if COVID breaks up a bit and touring starts, and from every manager I've talked to, when touring does start again, they liken it to like drinking after Prohibition. They think that people are going to be crazy to go hear live performance because it's been gone for so long.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
So hopefully, she's great. Her name is Anna McElroy, and my wife and I co-manage, co-produce her, and she's phenomenal. She was going to Alabama University. She drove up every week for a day or two and stayed with her cousin. We wrote every single week for a year. And wow. She said, when you want me there, I'll be there. I mean, she's not afraid to work. And I like that a lot about her.
Yeah, man. Well, that is always the first thing. If you're not ready to drive and start working, then
yeah, you gotta want this. You know how bad you gotta want this. I mean, I'm way later on in my career and I still get excited about good music, but if you don't want it so bad that you'll keep doing it in spite of all the odds, you're not going to get anywhere in this business. I mean, when I moved here when I was in my early 30s, and we'd had a pop record deal in Los Angeles, and it hadn't turned out well, and we had our first kid, and I didn't want to, it was, if you wanted a band in LA, you had to pay them to play. I didn't want to go through all that again. I didn't want to get another publishing deal. And raising my kid in LA wasn't making sense. Somebody said you should go to Nashville and look around. So we went out here, loved the people, and decided to move. We went home and put our house up for sale, and it sold the first day. So it's like, I guess we're moving. And so it was us, a baby, and a dog, and a bird. And we drove out here, and they told me, if you're going to make it in this business, it's going to take 5 years. And it was 5 years and 2 months later, I had my first #1 record.
Wow. That's really awesome. Okay. So
I've got your list of questions here, buddy. So,
yeah,
and I'd like to hear all of what you guys are doing too. Where I can hear your music and stuff. I didn't know your wife was involved. My wife was involved too, which is interesting.
Oh yeah, man. I wouldn't do it without her. She's actually the
singer and.
Yeah, she's a singer. She's actually to me, she's the lyric guru, man. I mean, I'm
kind of a music guy.
Yeah. I probably do a lot more tracking and, I mean, I love doing it all, but there are people who just can get lyrics from their soul. You know what I mean? She's just one of those people,
I started writing songs when I was 5 or 6 years old. My mom says that I told her, Mom, those little songs that are going around in your head, I said, you should save them because I'm collecting them.
Oh, wow.
And when I was like 13, my band played 39 Beatles songs and 13 of mine. I'd already written 13 songs. And I had my first single come out when I was 16 years old. So I think I learned early on that I was a decent musician, but there were guys that were just better than me. There's just a lot better. But what I could do that they couldn't do was make up music. And I got shunned a lot for that in Minneapolis because people didn't really like, why are you doing that? But that's always what I wanted to do. So I made up songs, and it was what I could do better than other people could do it. And I wrote whole songs, and, my band would play them. And we have some of the original records. They're pretty funny.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, so 5 years old, you got songs running around in your head. Do you remember your first song that you wrote?
I mean, a couple of the first ones that I wrote that my band did that we actually recorded, and I don't know if they were first or not. One was called You've Been Telling Lies, and one was called You Said Goodbye. And I think I have the records of them.
Dude, that's awesome.
And we cut them 4-track at Dove Recording Studios. We played them down live, then we sang them, and they mixed them. That was it. It was probably like not even a good demo by today's standards.
Wow. But hey, it was music, man.
It was, when other kids would play sports and da-da-da, I played baseball and stuff till I was 12. Hurt my arm throwing curveballs. It's pretty good. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, athlete-wise, 6.5, 7. Like I didn't suck, but I wasn't great. Kind of like I was as a musician. People think I'm a better musician than I am. I mean, I play guitar and piano, and I play okay. But like the guys that really play, like we know the guys that really play, like maybe you or people that I know, I'm not in that league. Just not in that league. My childhood consisted of, from the time I was about 12, I would come home from school, go to band practice. Well, basically, we practiced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday night, we took down the equipment and loaded up the van. Friday, we played. Saturday, we played. Sunday, after church, we reset up the equipment in the basement, pick out the 3 songs we were going to learn. We'd all learn our parts, and then we'd practice again all week. And I did that for 6 years straight. That's all I did.
That's awesome.
All the time. That was my social life. I didn't go to dances. I didn't go to football games. I didn't do any of that. I played music. And so I learned discipline anyway, and I was very, very structured in how we did things. Now, when I went into music full time and I just had all this time, I didn't know exactly how to structure my time and how to become a professional songwriter. It helped when I moved here and I actually got a job and I went and wrote songs. When I came here, I programmed everything. I programmed drums, and I had a tape machine, and I ran stuff on tape, a sync tone, and I ran vocals and stuff on tape. But I ended up quitting doing that because everybody here wrote, and then they went to the studio and made demos. And I thought, well, if I don't do that, I won't be able to keep up. And it's true, I learned to write better by writing. But, 10 years ago, I realized that if I didn't learn to program again and learn to make a beat and stuff like that, kids would think I couldn't write. Even if they were wrong, that was the case. So I tried making demos in Pro Tools, and I just don't like Pro Tools is what I found out. I like it for vocals, but I bought Logic one spring and went to my mom's for a vacation. And after 2 weeks, I just switched to Logic, and I started doing everything in Logic. And I can program pretty good in Logic. I'm not ever going to be a track guy, so to speak, but I'm pretty good. I'm good enough to make any kind of demo.
Yeah. I started on Digital Performer, and I
did too. That was what I was on when I first came here.
Yeah, I've actually stuck with it. I can't stand Pro Tools. Well, I shouldn't say I can't stand it. I'm not proficient on it. I have a lot of friends who love Logic. And I mean, I know the basics. I could get around on it if I have to, but I
can't make Pro Tools sound good. But for vocals, like I'll do my track in Logic, bounce it and cut them there. because I like their comping system. I like the waves forms, and it's really easy for me to tune because they have audio suite. So if you're working with a good singer, a lot of things you don't have to tune, and you just go in and fix it where you need to fix it. You don't have to auto tune the whole thing. Logic comes with so many sounds, and what they've done now, I mean, it's so there's things I can do that makes it sound like I know how to cut and chop and all kinds of stuff that I don't really spend a lot of time doing. It does it for you. It's crazy.
All right. So first of all, what was your first undeniable hit? And when you wrote it, did you know it was a hit when you wrote it?
When I moved here, my wife was working full time so that we could afford for me to write. I got a writing deal. First I worked, and then I got a writing deal. I won't even go through all that. It's too long of a story. But I was writing all the time, and one of my benefactors, or one of the people that was really, really nice to me, were Max and Patsy Barnes. Max was a very, very well-known writer in this town, more of a lyricist than anything else, but really he wrote like Chiseled in Stone, and he wrote lots of songs with Skippy. He wrote Both of Us with Vince Gill.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote, if you look him up, he's a Hall of Fame songwriter. And anyway, their family was really good to us. Patsy helped us get settled and stuff, but they never really understood. I was way too pop. I'm sure they thought that I would never make it in this business, because I think they just thought, like, this guy, like, we were speaking two different languages.
Right.
Like, when somebody called him a hillbilly, I was offended. I thought that was an insult. I didn't even understand country music enough to get that. You know what I mean? So their son, Max T, and I were friends. And Max had been out on the road with Skip Ewing and had written that song about the note and the tree. I can't remember. It was a hit song, and he had a hit song. And we would write together occasionally, but most times he would cancel me because he would want to go water skiing or whatever else. He was more of a musician than a writer. Not that he didn't have the talent to be a writer. He just wasn't very dedicated at the time. He ended up becoming quite dedicated. So my wife was in California visiting her parents. They were getting older, and I had our son, and he would go to daycare during the day, and I was supposed to write with Max this one day. And I went over to his house, and we started this one song, and we both agreed it wasn't very good. And Max had this idea in a guitar lick, a real funky guitar lick that I kind of like, because Max was so country. And you got to realize, I was a pop writer trying to learn to write country music. And when I wrote country music, it didn't sound country. It just sounded like fake country music. You know, I needed to either be with a real country writer, or I needed to write a popish kind of song. And I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. But so Max played this lick, and I went, man, that's cool. And we wrote this song, and it was called Before You Kill Us All. And Max goes, your demos are great. This is back when I was doing my demos just the way I said. He said, you just do the demo. I got to go on the road. Call me when it's done. And back then I used, like, JT Cornfloss just passed away. I actually started with JT Cornfloss in the business, but I would use him. But that particular session that I did, I used Biff Watson. And this guitar lick was, it was really a funky sounding guitar lick. And we wrote this song, and I read the lyric to my wife on the phone. She goes, oh my God. She said, I think you wrote a hit. And I said, yeah, this song sounds like a hit. And so I said, I'm going to cut the demo. So I went in, and I had a drummer playing pads into my Mac in the living room. I had Biff Watson in my laundry room. I had the bass player right behind me and the steel player in the kitchen. And we kept trying to record this song. And I was good at demos, and I couldn't make it sound good. And I kept saying to Biff, that's not the lick. That's not the, he said, well, that's what he's playing. I said, doesn't sound right. I ended up spending almost all day, and usually get 5 songs in a demo session. I got 2. And I didn't like what I had on that. And so Max called me and said, well, how's the demo? And I said, Max, it sucks. I said, if you like steel guitar, bass, and drums, I got a great demo, but I got nothing else. I said, you got to come over here. He said, I'll be right over. So he comes over with a guitar in this little box. And what I didn't realize is that in his house, the guitars that he had, he kept them all tuned differently. And the one that he had picked up to write this song was tuned to C instead of E. So it sounded like spaghetti.
Oh,
so he
wow.
tuned the guitar way, way down and went, sounded like a talk box. He played it and I went, boom, there it is. There's the demo. So I had Ron Wallace come over and sing it, finish the demo. He took it to, my publisher took it to Martha at Warner Brothers. Boom, they put it on hold for Randy Travis right away, and they were going to cut the song. It was the first song I had on hold that a star was going to cut. And I called Max on the phone and I said, your dad knows Kyle Lenny, doesn't he? He said, yeah, I know Kyle too. And I said, your dad's good friends with him, right? Because Max had written a lot of songs Kyle Lenny had cut. He wrote Mama Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. I can't even think of all the songs. I mean, he wrote huge songs, big songs. I mean, people used to look at him looking at Billboard and going, studying your empire, Max. He'd have 4 songs out at once in the top 10.
Wow.
And so I said, he said, why? I said, is there any chance you can go to the session when they record this? He said, why? I said, because I don't usually miss demos, Max. And Biff Watson is a great guitar player. And I said, he was nowhere near this thing. And I said, if they play it like that, we're not going to get the song cut. They're gonna pass on it. He said, well, I'll check with my dad. He called Kyle and Kyle invited him to the session. So he went in and Mark Stevens was playing guitar and Max was just sitting in the back and Kyle's listening to it. And Max said it sounded like Pretty Woman, what they were playing. And finally, Kyle turns to him and said, well, what do you think, Max? He said, would you mind if I go show Mark something? He said, no, not at all. So he walks out, cranks the guitar down, plays the lick, and everybody goes, oh, boom, they cut it. Randy cuts it, 10 weeks, #1. My first #1 record. Wouldn't have happened if he didn't do that. We wouldn't have got the cut.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
That's the story.
So where were you when you first heard it on the radio?
You know, I don't even remember, Sam. I do know that I was really excited. My mom and dad came out in May, and I think we went and rented a cabin in Gatlinburg to celebrate for a day or two. I had my first big hit, and I had no idea. I remember at that point, I didn't know how much money I would make or anything. I actually bought this house that I'm in today I made the down payment with that money. And I remember when I got my first check, I went, oh my God, I guess I'm actually in this business now. So I guess I'm a professional. I have to write more hits. Like, it had never occurred to me. I just wrote songs. It never occurred to me like that I would make very much money or that was going to be my job. I just love freaking music. Like most of us, we just write because we'd write anyway.
All right. So is there a song in your career that like means the most to you? Could be unreleased, could be something.
Well, there's songs that mean a whole lot to me emotionally that have never done anything. There's songs that mean a lot to me for other reasons because they were successful when everybody said they wouldn't be.
Oh yeah.
And then there's songs that I don't even know how I got on the radio. I mean, there's so many different kinds. Like arguably the biggest record I ever had. Well, the biggest record I ever had worldwide was The Way You Love Me because it was #1 in so many countries. But the biggest money maker and most plays by far is Something Like That by Tim McGraw.
Oh yeah.
And nobody wanted to do that song. Everybody had passed on it. It got cut by accident. Byron, I think Byron wasn't even there when they cut it. Curb said, don't worry, it's never going to be a single, wasn't supposed to be on the record. And then radio just started playing it, and it's gone on to be his second most performed song of all time.
Wow.
And he just recorded it again, a broken down version, a special version for Amazon. I mean, it still plays. One of the coolest moments, I think writers don't get to have these too often, but I can think of 2 of them that I've had recently. I was in Canada watching this artist of mine, getting ready to watch him perform at a club. And, I think the drinking age in Canada is 18. So most of the kids in there, the youngsters or people, whatever, were 18 to 30, 35, maybe. So the majority of them were under 25. And there was a DJ spinning songs until my guy came on, spinning songs. And all of a sudden, something like that comes on. Like they're playing new country songs. All of a sudden it comes on. Everybody in the place is singing the songs. These kids are 18, 19 years old. They weren't even born when it came out. And everybody knows every word to that song. I was just shocked. And it was really fun to see. And the other instance like that, I was in a Macy's or something, waiting for my wife, killing time at an 80% off shopping rack next to this big woman who happened to be a black woman, African-American woman. And she's kind of singing to herself, and The Way You Love Me comes on, and she's singing every word and just smiling away. And she knows that song, and it just made my day that it made somebody happy.
That's awesome, man.
That's the only two times I've ever really had and it's fun to sit over there right next to her going, I wrote that, and she doesn't even know it.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And when I wrote that song too, that was an interesting song. I was put together with Michael Delaney, who was a really serious, great songwriter, but more wrote by himself a lot, ballads, intricate lyric and stuff. And we'd never met. And so, it's like getting undressed in front of somebody. It was kind of awkward. And
yeah,
we didn't know what to do. And so I was nervous. And so I kept making up this verse and this chorus, and I was having him sing backgrounds. And pretty soon I was changing keys and everything because I was nervous. I didn't know if the song was any good. So we finished the song and I was worn out. I come home, my wife goes, well, what did you write today? I said, I honestly don't know. And about 2 months later, my song plugger said, whatever happened to that song you and Delaney wrote? He said, I really like that song. You got to record that song. And I said, okay. So I recorded it. And I did everything here at my house. The guys were in the garage and right in this studio where I am now. And the studio wasn't near as nice. I didn't have good rooms out there. I have great vocal rooms and stuff. But I mean, a piano player in the living room. I've always had home studios. And we did this song. And when I got to mixing it, I couldn't make it sound good with the backgrounds. Like if I turned the backgrounds up, they were too loud. If I turned them down, they were too soft and you couldn't understand what they were saying. And that's the kiss of death in country music. And I couldn't figure out what to do. So finally, I just put the backgrounds on a breakdown chorus. I didn't put them on the regular chorus, and I turned in the demo. And my song plugger comes back. He goes, man, this song is a hit. He said, you've got to put those backgrounds in all the time. They're what make this song. And I said, I agree with you, but I couldn't make them work. So he said, you got to remix it. So I went back, I turned music down, I remixed it. I brought it in. He took it to Byron Gallimore, Missy Gallimore. It was on hold the next day for Faith Hill. It turned out that Faith didn't really like the song very much, but Byron loved it. And to Byron's credit, he cut an incredibly good record on it, much better than my demo. He sped it up a lot. They did this cool loop on it and all this. And I ran into him at a party. And he said, and Stephanie Bentley sang all my stuff then. She sang my demos and she sang all the backgrounds. She's like a sister to me. Yeah. She had written Breathe. And they'd already cut Breathe. It was out. And he goes, Keith, who did you use to sing backgrounds on it? He said, I've tried like 6 singers. I can't get anybody that works. And I said, oh, you got to use Stephanie Bentley. I said, she's the one, it's that sound in her voice. And he said, well, how do you hear those things? He said, because I don't know how to. So he's struggling with what I was struggling with. And I said, Byron, I said, I think they need to be just loud enough to understand what they're saying if you really try. And I said, I thought of them more as like a synth part, like a melody background part, but they're saying something. And he goes, I get that. So he called Stephanie, and Stephanie tells the story afterwards that she went in and she sang the demo on the song. And she said, when she got done, she did the backgrounds. And then he said, why don't you, and somebody else had sang the demo, and she goes, you know, Byron, and only Stephanie would do this. She goes in her Georgia accent, Byron, you know, this song sounds great. She said, but that melody that they're singing on there, that is not the melody Keith wrote to this song that Faith is singing. I guess Faith had sang the song. She goes, what I can do is I can sing harmony to Faith, and then I can sing the melody that he wrote in the harmony to show you how it would sound. She did that, and he made her come back in and re-sing it with my melody, which was real nursery rhyming. It sounded like if I play it for you on the guitar, it sounds like a Beatles song.
Oh, wow.
Because it does this, it just does this, especially, if I could grant you one wish you'd see the way you kiss this. Ooh, I love watching you, baby, when you're driving me crazy. So it changes keys like a Beatles song would. And I don't think that song would have ever turned into what it turned into had she not done that. And, you know, Faith didn't want to do it. And it was a huge, huge record. And when I heard it, I went, this is so pop. There's no way country radio is going to play this. And they did.
Man, that's awesome.
But see, I eventually just said to myself, I kept trying to write country songs. And I finally just said, you know what? I'm going to be who I am in this town. If I have to work at Home Depot, that's what I'm going to do. And when I started just writing what I wrote, I had all kinds of success.
Man, that's the good word right there.
That's the truth. I mean, when I figured that out, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, I learned so much from being with real country writers about lyrics and how to say things and how to do. I learned to write in this town. I learned to write from everybody that was kind enough to write with me. That's how I figured out who I was. And I think that's what we all do.
So who are your heroes? Like, if you're like, I'm going to, like I put on there the 3 albums you'd take to a desert island if they were ones, but like who?
Well, first of all, the Beatles were, if you hear my songs, there's an indelible stamp of the Beatles. When I grew up, Sam, we had an English au pair because my mother did my dad's books. And at that time, you could hire somebody from England, pay their airfare to come over, give them room and board, and pay them a weekly salary. And they would clean the house, take care of the kids and stuff. And my mom, we had that because it wasn't an extravagance. It was like a necessity so my mom could work because not many women worked back then. So the woman that we had, her boyfriend in England was the manager of the Searchers. And they did Needles and Pins and all these songs. Sonny Bono wrote Needles and Pins. This is so far before your time, you don't even know what I'm talking about. But he managed the Searchers. And so we would get this pop newspaper from England every week. It came over. And like 2 years before the Beatles even came out, I saw pictures of them jumping up and down in their hair and stuff like that. And I went, who are these guys? So I got a record from England before they even came out over here. And I was wearing my hair like that. I was learning all their songs. And I was a Beatle fanatic, like everybody was in my age group. Only difference was I played their music. So I was totally 1,000% influenced by the Beatles until I was about 15 or 16. And we auditioned for a booking agency. And he said, you guys are great, but you're going to have to play dance music, R&B. I lived in Minneapolis. And he goes, things that people can dance to, like the Temptations, the Four Tops, and the Spinners. Also, back in those days, this is interesting, the radio, like one of my favorite songs was The End of the World by Skeeter Davis. I didn't know she was a country artist. Oh, wow. Another one of my favorite songs was Mr. Postman by the Shirelles. I didn't know the difference. I just knew I loved that song. So in those days, you just liked what you liked. There wasn't all these boxes. And if you would have turned on a country radio station with Hank Williams on it, I would have just turned it off. I wouldn't have known what it was.
Wow.
So we had to learn R&B. And when I first listened to it, like I couldn't even fathom it. like Marvin Gaye and this, like I couldn't sing Ain't Too Proud to Beg. I couldn't even sing like that. And I ended up my niche became the Young Rascals. They were Blue-Eyed Soul, and I could do that. I was a keyboard player, and I could sing those songs, and I could do Good Lovin' and stuff like that. We ended up with a kid in our band who loved R&B, and he could sing Smokey Robinson, and he could do Jackie Wilson and all this stuff. And R&B, when I heard Aretha Franklin sing, like that was the end of the world for me. Like I went, this girl can sing. So I became this huge R&B fan. Flash forward a few more years, and when the Eagles came out, they were my favorite American band, bar none. And I still think Don Henley is probably one of the greatest American songwriters, if not the greatest songwriters of all time. And he's not a very nice guy as a person. I met Glenn Frey, and he was super nice. He actually sang Desperado in my living room.
Wow.
But Henley, I mean, one of the albums I would take would be Boys of Summer.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. New York Minute and The Heart of the Matter. I mean, come on. Get Out of Town. Those are great songs.
Great.
Sgt. Pepper, for sure.
Yeah.
The White Album I was a fan of. I was a huge fan of the British Invasion. I mean, Led Zeppelin, I never could play that music or whatever, but I mean, I got it. I mean, it was as good as it got then. And I liked all those bands, Procol Harum, Deep Purple, I was really a son of the British Invasion. But when the Eagles came out, like Life in the Fast Lane, Doolin Dalton's, all those songs, my band at that time, I still lived in Minneapolis. We were playing 6 nights a week, and we played all of those Eagles songs. And I mean, one of these nights, I mean, those songs were so well written. Those guys had a sense of lyrics that most pop music songs didn't have. I have to also include in Heroes, I mean, I've got to include like that first Temptations album with Ain't Too Proud to Beg and My Girl and all that stuff on it.
Yeah.
And the Spinners, I'll Be Around is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. I got to write with Lamont Dozier of Holland Dozier in Holland for a few days. It was
Cool.
a great experience, and I heard some stories that I couldn't believe. And then I actually saw Motown on Broadway in New York, and the stories that Lamont told me were right in the show. You know, it was really, really fun.
So
and,
you met Don Henley. That was
I met Glenn Frey when I got to meet Paul McCartney too, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
When I got when we lived in LA, we were good friends with Stevie Nicks' best friend. We used to fly around on Fleetwood Mac's jet. We went to some of their shows. I know Stevie. She got us help get our first record deal. So we have a long history of LA stuff that happened. But long story short, when I lived in Minneapolis, I was managed by this guy who ended up being Prince's co-manager. And I was doing shows for opening for Bonnie Raitt and stuff. I was just playing piano and singing my songs. And I was a big Randy Newman fan too. Like I loved Randy Newman. So I could play his stuff and I could play the Eagles, and like everybody was a guitar player. Like there were very few keyboard players that played and sung. Anyway, he wanted me to sing my songs for Glenn Frey. And so the Eagles came to town, and he was working for Warner Brothers. And so he called up and said, "Hey, I got somebody I'd like to bring over. Can we swim in your mom's pool and stuff?" And I said, "Sure. Who is it?" He said, "You'll see when I get there." So he brings over Glenn Frey. Wow. We swam in the pool all day. My mom made barbecued chicken, and he wanted me to play Glenn some of my songs, which I did. Glenn liked my songs, said, "You should come to LA and we'll see if we can get together, da-da-da." And I was like 19. And like I was too scared to go to LA, and I didn't go, and I should have gone. And I don't know if he would have talked to me then anyway. But he said, "Let me play you what I've been working on." And he sat down at the piano and he played Desperado, and hadn't even come out yet.
Wow. That's awesome.
And he sang like Desperado in this little soft voice. It was really amazing.
That is unbelievable.
That's what happened.
That is crazy. So do you do anything else besides music?
No.
Really creative, just music?
No, my wife is, my wife always wrote too. And in the last 8-9 years, we write together everything that we do mostly. I don't even write with anybody else except the artists that that we do, and she is really creative in terms of we write with our kids, but she's really a good artist and a great painter and all that. I couldn't make a stick man if my life depended on it. I've always been good with picking up. I can just play the piano, and mostly the piano, but the guitar too, and stuff just comes to my head. I think of melodies all the time, but I also think of titles. I also think of ideas. I probably have 700-800 working titles. I mean, I've always, I was playing golf with somebody the other day, and somebody said, what did he say? He goes, I wrote it down. I'll tell you. And it's a great idea for a song. And people never know what they're saying. Oh, he said, look what you've done. I said, what a great idea for a song. Like a girl says to a guy, you made me fall in love with you. Look what you've done. I didn't want to do this. I mean, a guy could say that. I mean, it's just, but I hear it just like, how it is. We're fishermen. We're by the river. And my brain works differently. Like, people like to play music when I play golf. I can't be around it, because as soon as they do, I'm listening to the song. I'm listening to the snare drum sound. I'm listening to the lyric. And I can't think about my golf swing. So I ask him, please, guys, at least turn it down, or don't mean to hear me when I'm swinging. Because I tried, because I love Halsey. So they gave us this thing that I could put on my golf cart, and it plays music. It's like a wingman. It's really cool. So I'm going to listen to Halsey. I turned on Halsey. I couldn't hit the golf ball out of my shadow because I'm listening to the record.
So she's talented. Yeah. I
love her. She's my favorite pop girl singer. I mean, Ellie Goulding was my favorite singer. I mean, there's a lot of them, but I love Halsey.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it when she did the thing with Lady Antebellum on the award show. That was awesome.
Well, back when my boys were so big on the radio, they did a duet with Lady A as well. I wrote a couple songs on their first record. I used to work with those kids all the time. I wrote "Looking for a Good Time."
Oh yeah.
With them. And it would have been number one. It was number like 8, but it was a hookup song, and radio just wasn't ready to hear a hookup song at that point.
Oh yeah.
So we do that. We write with our artists that we're developing. And I don't do very many writes for hire or any, what I would call, I don't write at all to try to get a cut on an artist. Although I'm getting, I had a 1-year publishing deal 5-7 years ago with Razor and Tie, worst company I've ever worked for. And they sold out to Concord, and Jen Duke called me and said, you wrote this song with, it was a Christian singer. She's really good. I'm trying to think of her name. I bet you know her. Anyway, Paul Worley's cutting a record on her. Here it is. Her name is Liz Longley.
Liz Longley? I don't know.
You don't know her? I mean, the song is great. Anyway, they're cutting it. I just got an Alan Jackson cut that I wrote with Jamie Johnson.
Oh wow.
I'm getting all kinds of, Tim Reed did my something like that song, a special for Amazon. There's a billboard down on Music Row right now. He redid it, and I think it was because of all the COVID performances he did this summer. And I know his manager, and they would do these. So they did a real broken down thing. It's all piano based. Then the song's coming out again. It's crazy. But I'll send you this song. It's let me just forward you this email, and you can listen to it. I mean, this girl is a phenomenal singer. There, I just sent you this song. You can listen to it when you get a chance.
So what do you do to keep current?
Sam, we've been so far ahead of what goes on in country music all my life because we're so pop. Now, I listened to one of my demos 15 years ago, and no wonder I couldn't get it cut then. It sounded like country music today. I'm beyond current. And my kids are in Hot Shell Ray. So they play me their favorite new songs every time we're hanging out together. All we do is listen to music. We go on a 700-mile car ride to get a new car for them or something. We listen to everything they have. I didn't even like rap music, and I heard Macklemore before he came out. I mean, he's just a great lyricist. So I'm beyond current. I don't have to try to stay current. I like modern music. I can listen to the radio today, but boy, there's still great songs. And when Louis Capaldi comes on, or that Love guy, Love Drunk in New York City, great song. I mean, there's still great songs. People my age, they listen to the same thing they grew up on. I don't ever listen to that. I listen to either modern pop radio or modern country radio.
Yeah.
And I only listen for about an hour a week because that's all I can stand. But I want to know what's out there.
Right.
And a great song's still a great song, and there's still great songwriters, and they still know how to do it. I hope the art never dies.
Yeah, for real. Being
current, my problem was usually I was way too pop for this town. Think about The Way You Love Me when it came out.
Yeah.
It wasn't remotely country. And my wife and I wrote that I Love You song by Martina McBride. I'm in so totally wrapped up. That was my wife's melody. Doesn't sound country at all. It was 5 weeks at #1.
That's really awesome. Well, it's cool when you can trust your instincts, you know?
When we started writing a lot of pop music again, I didn't trust my instincts at first. I didn't know. And then the more I did it, the more I went, it's just be who you are. And my melodies, like I played my wife a song or 2 nights ago. And I said, oh, I love this song. I think this is a great song. Our artist was there and she goes, that isn't remotely country, Keith. That's so pop. It doesn't sound that way to me. That's my problem. I think I am if you could draw a line between pop and country music, I think I would walk right in the middle of it. I think I have country sensibilities for living in Nashville for 30 years of my life. But I think the soul of me is a pop writer.
What would be your advice to any writer either starting out or trying to, spread their wings? What I learned along my way, what would be the thing that you would
kind of what I've told my sons all the way along. And my son actually wrote a song on his last record. If you listen to it, it's called Follow Your Heart. I always said, just write from your heart. The money, the whatever will come. Do what you love. Be great at what you love. Do who you are. That's probably how I made it in this business, is perseverance.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm certainly not the most talented guy in the world. I mean, arguably I might have a little bit, but I'm not the most talented guy in the world, but I work really hard. I always thought that too. Coming up, I thought there's guys way better than me at this, but I'm just going to work hard that I'm going to try to make it in this business. And it's hard to learn to get knocked down and get back up again. It's just hard. And you never get used to it. Doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much for being gracious with your time.
Oh, Sam, thank you for even thinking of me.
Man.
I hope you can find 2 sentences that are worth having.
Everybody's journey is different. And,
they're so different.
Yeah. What one person says, it's crazy how people define success is different and stuff, and, but I just thought it'd be good to, reach out to some of the people I, love and respect and go, hey man, give me your 2 cents on songs,
I think there's still a great song is a great song. And I think you can sing it, I can sing it, or the Bugs Bunny over there can sing it. and if it's a great song, people love it. And for me, it's always been, write what you love, and if you love it, somebody else probably will too. Be awesome. Thank you so much for thinking of me, Sam.
Absolutely. Talk soon.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.